going to start the inaugural session. Namaste and a very warm welcome to all. Excellencies, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Energy and Resources Institute, TERI, I welcome you to the World Sustainable Development Summit 2021. We are all virtually in the Pavagada Auditorium, named after the world's largest solar park in Karnataka in South India. As you attend the different sessions of the summit, you move to other venues, you will notice that all our virtual halls in this summit are named after India's major solar and wind facilities. It is a humble celebration of India's efforts to transition to a clean and sustainable future for all. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and privilege to welcome in this inaugural session of the World Sustainable Development Summit 2021, Shri Narendra Modi, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, His Excellency, Dr. Mohammad Irfan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Honorable James Marape, Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Mr. Mohammad Nasheed, Speaker of the People's Majlis, Republic of Maldives, Ms. Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General, United Nations, and Shri Prakash Javadekar, Honorable Union Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. The theme of this year's summit is redefining our common future, a safe and secure environment for all. The task of redefining our common future and creating a safe environment is challenging, but we know it is possible. The summit series was started in 2001. Since then, every year for 20 years, we have gathered the finest minds from the biggest and the smallest countries, from governments, businesses, and civil societies on a common platform and giving them equal stake as stakeholders of planet Earth. In this crucial year, the agenda of the summit is specially designed to link to the ideas and discussions here and to the other global events that will determine our common future, namely the 15th Conference of Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, scheduled in May, and the 25th Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, scheduled in November. A lot has been achieved, but a lot more remains to be done. With this, may I now invite Shri Nitin Desai, Chairman TERI, to kindly deliver his welcome address.
Thank you very much, Annapurna. Mananiya Pradhan Mantri Ji, His Excellency Shri Mohammad Irfan Ali, the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Shri Honorable James Marape, the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Mohammad Nasheed, the Speaker of the People's Majlis in Maldives, former President of Maldives also, and Ms. Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, and Shri Prakash Javadekar, the Minister for Environment of the Government of India. It's a pleasure for me and an honor and a privilege to welcome people of such great eminence to the 20th World Sustainable Development Summit. This summit was started 20 years ago by Dr. Rajendra Pachauri, who passed away about a year ago. And I would take this opportunity of dedicating this summit to his sacred memory. Over these 20 years, this summit has brought together people, leaders from around the world, experts, activists, and they came together and exchanged ideas about their vision, their strategy, and specific things that could be done for a sustainable future. It was a mixture of many different things. It's a mixture of basic ideas put forward by our political leaders from around the world, ideas put forward, new ideas put forward by scientists and engineers, and many other things. But more than that, because we got together in person, there was a lot of networking. And that brought people together, that brought them together to set up partnerships, and which led to very important initiatives in future. So this year, of course, we can't do that because we are in the COVID and we are meeting through the internet. But we can certainly do a great deal to push forward the agenda for sustainable development, which started more than 30 years ago in the global process. And Annapurna has outlined some of the major initiatives which are likely to take place in the course of this year to advance his agenda on issues of biodiversity and issues of climate change, particularly where the two big conference of parties are likely to be. But more than that, I think we need to bring the ideas of sustainable development into the way people think about their own lives, the way corporations think about their own activities. And I'm very happy that we are doing this in India because in many ways, our Prime Minister has taken lead in this, not just now, but from the time that he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat when he set up a Department of Climate Change and has been a strong supporter of issues of renewable energy and solar activities. So I'm very happy, Annapurna, that you have named all our sessions after solar camps that we have. So this is what we are hoping and expecting, and I'm truly grateful that so many of the leaders around the world have joined us today in this inaugural session. I'm sure all of us are looking forward to the guidance that they will give us on what is it that we ought to be doing in future. So with these few words, Annapurna, let me stop and let us listen to the leaders that we have here with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Desai. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Shri Prakash Javadekar, Honorable Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, to give his address. Honorable Minister.
Okay. Hello. Sorry for this glitch. Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, President of Republic of Guyana Mohammad Irfan Ali ji, then Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea James Marape, People's Republic Masli's Speaker of Maldives, Dr. Mohammad Nasir, and Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary of United Nations. I am very happy to be here in the TERI World Sustainable Development Summit because this annual event is now internationally recognized and there is good participation and good thoughtful discussions. And this actually creates agenda also for future sustainable conferences. I was just recollecting in 2012, I had participated in Durban UNFCCC Climate Change Conference as a member of parliament. And I saw there India as naysayer, a backbencher, not putting up ideas. But in 2015, when we went to Paris under leadership of Narendra Modi ji, we were leading from the front. He brought on the international table for the first time issues of lifestyle, climate justice, and also Indian lifestyle. He explained in great detail, which found place in preamble of Paris Agreement. I presented his wonderful book titled Convenient Action, because world is talking about inconvenient truth, but the answer is convenient action. And that also I gifted to all the dignitaries in Paris. In the same conference, Prime Minister launched International Solar Alliance, coalition of disaster resilient infrastructure, and mission innovation. So these three initiatives have also picked up very well throughout the world, and India is now in a leading position, putting forth its ideas. India is implementing its pledges. 4 international reports. One is United Nations Environment Program Emission Gap Report. Other is Climate Change Action Tracker Report. Third is Climate Change Performance Index. And fourth is Transparency Report. All these 4 reports say that India under Prime Minister Modi is leading from the front and is implementing all its pledges much well before time. So this is India's credibility now, and on the international scene, India is regarded as the main player. We have reduced emission intensity, we have increased forest, we have also given new target of restoration of degraded land, and with 90 gigawatts of renewable, we will definitely achieve Prime Minister target given by Prime Minister of 450 gigawatts. This will give India a leading position. This is our last sentence. This is our country's ethos. This is probably the only country in the world where we worship trees, we worship animals because we love nature, and therefore with all constraints, our biodiversity is 8% of the world, and we now want to place before the world developing world's demand of promised finance and technological cooperation, because that is the way forward. With this, I really compliment once again the TERI for this grand conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri Prakash Javadekar ji. May I invite Ms. Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General, United Nations, to address us all.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Prime Minister Modi, Your Excellency, the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Your Excellency, the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates. Following the tragic flash flood in Uttarakhand on Sunday, I first wish to express my sincere condolences to the government and the families and victims and people of India. Climate change is destabilizing our world, and the consequences are often terrifying, and my heart goes out to the people of Uttarakhand. We are reminded then of our global imperative to make peace with nature, and so I'm honored to join you all at the World Sustainable Development Summit. Over the years, this event has addressed the most pressing global challenges of our time, calling for collaborative partnerships across and between countries, states, and sectors to redefine our common future. We are at a uniquely challenging moment. We face a global pandemic with less than a decade left to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And science tells us that we must cut greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030 and reach net zero by 2050. Last year, we saw more than 100 nations commit to net zero emissions by 2050, or in the case of China, before 2060. This momentum is significant. More than 70% of the world economy and 65% of global carbon dioxide emissions are now committed to net zero. But this is not enough. The Global Coalition for Net Zero emissions needs to grow to cover the entire G20 countries and more than 90% of the emissions. This is one of the central objectives of the Secretary General and the United Nations this year. At the same time, all commitments to net zero must be underpinned by credible plans with intermediate targets to achieving a just transition. The major emitters in the G20 must lead the way. If consistent with the Paris Agreement goals, their combined short-term actions will bend the temperature curve and open enormous windows of opportunity that we need to achieve the SDGs. This is a mighty task, and I know that India will do its fair share. India is currently the only G20 country that will overachieve the objectives of its nationally determined contributions. So much has been done already, as India is seeking greater energy security through a revolution in solar, wind, and energy storage, installing 450 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2030 that will bring more jobs, cleaner air, and a more secure power grid. India's efforts provide a template and a path for others to follow, in particular through the international cooperation that this very institute represents. This year, more than ever, we count on India for its contribution to multilateralism as a force for good on COVID-19 vaccines, on climate action, on peacekeeping. Extreme weather and pathogens are transnational. Our solutions to this must also be transnational. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, the COVID-19 pandemic has been a severe setback to global progress on poverty eradication, food security, gender equality, and the other SDGs. But while we mourn the human tragedy of the pandemic, we must also seize the opportunities it offers. First among these is the chance to relaunch and to reshape the global economy. Now is the time to reinforce the environmental imperatives for sustainable economic growth. Now is the time to build a robust, resilient economy that is compatible with our climate goals. Every investment made in the recovery from COVID must be an investment in sustainability. The SDGs must be embedded in the national frameworks and institutions that go beyond specific political parties and administrations. We need to focus on areas that include gender equality and food systems and have the strongest catalytic effects in order to accelerate SDG implementation. Global policies and investments need to shift from grey to green. We must end fossil fuel subsidies and make societies, corporations, and communities more resilient to climate shocks. When we see some incremental steps towards sustainable business models, they're still very far from the scope of the scale that is required. We need national governments, regions, cities, businesses, and a civil society to work together towards a common goal of a more just, sustainable, and prosperous world. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, India has been an active, influential player on climate change from the very beginning. Even before the Paris Agreement, India was acting thoughtfully and strategically on its energy, environment, and development priorities. You have translated this strategic thinking into policies and into programs. Prime Minister Modi stood resolutely with the Paris Agreement, launching two major environmental initiatives in the time since: the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure and the International Solar Alliance. India is now poised to lead on the development of technologies that produce low-carbon steel and cement, and as co-leaders with Sweden of the Leadership Group for the Industry Transition. I look forward to seeing the path that you will chart to get to net zero emissions and a climate-resilient economy by mid-century. These efforts have not just national, but regional and global impact. I am confident that India can lead the way. India can count on the full support of the United Nations. Our expertise and convening power at the global and country level will hopefully maximize the impact of our partnership. I wish you productive deliberations and look forward to your ideas and to the leadership of those around the table today as we strive to meet the SDGs by 2030 and the Paris goals by 2050. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Amina Mohammed. Thank you.